Our sailors are keen to find the energy they'll need for the final fight. The last big chance to regain lost miles or take the lead is here. Welcome to the Ocean Race Show, where just as we finished our last update 2 days ago, dramatic scenes out on the water. First up, Team Milizia having something wrapped around their keel. Heeling the boat over and cranking the keel to one side showed a fishing net wrapped around the strut, and they had to send Will Harris over the side to cut it free. Everything cut away and it was back to smashing along at full speed. A big problem quickly dealt with, and they weren't the only team to be having issues. I'll let Robert Stanjek from Google Environment Team Europe explain.
I think in average we have like 22 knots, but they had a gust of 28. So we broached, jumped up in my pyjama to give them a hand, completely sold it now. Oh, it feels good that we have the breeze back, yeah?
Broaching due to sailing on the edge is common, and Robert is right that it's not something to get worked up about. After all, now they are in the wind, and because they ripped their downwind light wind spinnaker and put it completely out of action, they'll be glad there's enough wind now so that they can make full use of their masthead code 0 or A3 sail. Well, as long as nothing goes wrong with that one.
So we find a little hole on the A3, so we take the decision to drop it and to make a quick repair with tape on Sika. I think it's nice and maybe stronger than before, so now we can go.
Whoever it was on board that spotted the tear early on saved the team from a big problem. And in fact, the sail had some time to rest as the team found more wind and switched to the slightly smaller fractional reaching code 0, a sail built to stand tougher conditions.
The throw just fell out of the sky because we had the fail on the lock, and it took us a long time to recover the throw because we didn't want to lose the sail. Now it's all on board, and now the wind dropped again, and we're sailing under A3. At the moment it's 20 knots of wind speed, so finally good sailing again.
They've made big gains before, but with all their misfortune, Guyot Environment Team Europe find themselves over 300 miles behind the fleet as the boats turned east to Cape Town. From this position, the options to overtake are limited. Ahead, in fourth place, is Biotherm Sailing Fast, but currently finding themselves 150 miles behind the leaders, close enough though to keep them confident.
Yes, since 2 days we have more wind. We have a pretty good wind, downwind condition, and we are a little behind, but not a lot, so it's not finished. And yeah, during the day we crossed a cold front. It was impressive because since we started from Cabo Verde, it was a blue sky, and today we had a really dark sky, so it was nice. We are heading south, so probably a colder condition tomorrow.
Hard work ahead to close down the miles, so it's permitted to use a little of the drinking water to freshen up, ready for the final push.
Big shower.
Big shower. Flexi-free. Water. T-shirt. New all. Just today. Use today.
The three-way battle for first is between Team Milizia, who's found the speed that was lacking for the first half of this leg, but are clearly up to speed now, 11th Hour Racing Team marginally ahead and positioned to the south, and Team Holcim PRB, hoping to make it 2-leg wins in a row. It's going to be about making the best of the conditions, and we've seen a rapid change in the breeze over the last 2 days.
It's always a quick transition when you go south. You switch very quickly from a short t-shirt, sun, warm water on light wind, nearly never the wet weather gear or the harness, and we have to be careful to go back in a safe mode. I think it's very important when you've got this quick switch not to do any mistakes for the boat and for the people as well.
Where is your t-shirt?
Oh, I'm wearing merino wool now on the body.
Why?
And boots on the feet. Feel strange. They feel like they're in prison after 10 days of being barefoot.
A change in weather and sailing style, and while the teams are fast now, there are more changes ahead right up to Cape Town.
And there is plenty of things going to happen before the finish, because we will have a very, very light wind area for to cross before going to Cape Town, so everything can happen.
We noticed something in the background of this little piece, Nico Lundven wearing earplugs, and we've seen a lot of our sailors do this because the noise on board the boat, it really is something else. And there's a very good reason why all our sailors have to try and block that out. Sleep is something that every athlete needs.
I think, yeah, you get used to it, but you think it's impossible to sleep. And then, in fact, you're tired. And for me, it really helps to put some earplugs in, cuts a bit the noise. And you get used to the noises. It's the new normal for sleeping. So if I'm still sleeping like a baby, no?
How do you deal with this sound all day long?
Will was managing better than me.
Yeah, it's very annoying. We have these headsets, as you can see, which are helpful, but I guess it's like trying to sleep in the front row of a discotheque, right in front of a DJ.
Yeah, but then like bad music.
But bad music, like music
like
you really
babies
don't like.
screaming and crying, and it's like if you have the 20 notes, it's like
Like now?
like 20 notes, 22 notes, and then and 30 notes like.
All of our sailors are longing for a good rest, but with things being so tight at the front of the fleet, nobody is prepared to ease up.
It's going to be a close race right to the end, I think. So what we really don't need is any big mistakes, anything that's going to cause us to slow down a lot. We've got on the edge with the foil at the moment, and we really don't want to have to stop being able to use it. So if we can do this, and we can not slow down, then we're in for a chance, I think. So.
Rather than wait to find another cracked piece of hardware or a ripping control line, on board Team Militia they decided to do a full check of the rudder systems and rope pulleys at the stern. Wet and wild work in this weather. And this is why it matters, because 11th Hour Racing Team seem to be setting the pace. With the weather front providing the power, the team are blasting east to the finish. Their speed at times peaking over 32 knots. So how do the boats overtake then? I mean, the weather for the next couple of days pretty much puts everybody on one path. Going in a different direction isn't really an option. So what are your choices? One option is matching the amount of sail you are flying with the amount of wind. And now we are seeing the wind picking up. The mainsail is reefed, lowered down the mast with the bottom section folded away against the boom. Deciding when to do this is tricky. Reefing before the big wind arrives means going slow before that breeze finally gets to you. Reefing too late means trying to reduce sail when the conditions are making being on deck impossible. As with all things, it's a balancing act. And the sailors, as always, adjust to the new conditions and how the boat sails.
Basically, if we're going fast, it's uncomfortable. So if it's comfortable, something's wrong. So, you know, it's pretty brutal, to be honest. The waves are quite short, so you end up slamming into waves and the boat stops. And so you try, we've been all trying to find an easier boat which is as fast and less brutal, but it basically doesn't exist. That's what we've come down to.
And it's not just comfort that the teams are working on. There is something that is very risky in these conditions, and it's particularly a problem for the Imokas, and it comes with foiling at high speed. Nosediving, when the bow of the boat buries itself in the wave in front and the boat effectively slams on the brakes, and things can break, including the sailors.
Some pasta carbonara.
You feel like you earned it?
You alright? Yeah, you. Are you okay?
Yeah.
And for Francesca Klapcic and Amory Ross on board 11th Hour Racing Team, that was quite mild. That was back on leg one. And the conditions that we're seeing now are, well, they're a little bit more severe for nosediving. And why is that? Why do our mockers nosedive at sometimes when they're going fast and at other times they seem to be riding absolutely fine? We thought we'd take a little bit of a look. So I've scrounged around the office and I've got some things here that I'm going to use as waves, and I've got my Imoca. Now, our Imocas are going so fast that they're actually chasing the waves in front. They're going a lot faster than the water is moving with the wind. And just like any boat, really, as they sail along, they'll climb up the wave before riding down its front face. They'll level off in the trough before climbing the next one. And they'll just continue that as long as they're going downwind. There's an interesting thing that happens where the wavelength gets really short. And actually, for our boats, they will skip from crest to crest, one wave to the next, and they get quite a light, fluttery, bumpy ride. It's quite violent, but it's a very different feel. The problem is when the distance between the two waves gets to a magic amount. It's something near the length of our Imocas. And at that point, as our boat is going down the front face of the wave, it's still going down when it runs into the wave in front. It never has time to level out and begin its climb. So at that point, the nose has nowhere to go but underneath the wave in front. That's the nosedive. The brakes slam on and the boat shudders to a halt. And we've seen this in the build-up to the race. All of our sailors know that this is a problem that they will face. So what can they do about it? Well, one of the options is to get just about anything on board the boat that can move and drag it right to the stern. Put it as far back as possible and get that weight right over the stern of the boat to try and lift the bow up. And you may have noticed this too. It's something that all of our teams have been doing. On Team Milizia, Will, out of shot, is lashing down the sails that they've dragged to the stern to hold them down in place. And there's something else that Team Milizia have done that no other team can copy. It was a decision that they made probably back in 2020 when the boat was just lines on a piece of paper. At the design stage, they made a decision with their bow. You've probably noticed it's taller, fuller, rounder, and having much more volume than the other boats. There are so many factors that go into different designs being fast or slow, but in the conditions of the last few days, downwind in short waves, this has definitely given them the edge, and everybody knows it.
Malaysia has been fast. I think it's a good boat for these conditions, with the short sea state and waves, and us who are a bit nosediving too much.
Each boat needs to find their way to ride the conditions and produce a good speed without too much risk of crashing out of control. On board 11th Hour Racing Team, Charlie Enright thinks they found it and briefed Justine on what's working.
This combination, the forecast for 26, it's peaking from the last 2 hours through the jive, basically 25 to 26. So I'm sure cloud-wise we'll be up and down, but this feels competitive, safe. Shoot it on for a bit, don't be slow. Okay, going to work. Down there. Sit there.
You may have noticed how much effort it takes to move around the cockpit with the boat leaping from wave to wave. Just staying on your feet is incredibly tricky. And eating on board is a whole new level of difficulty.
I would say, imagine try and drive your car around some sort of go-kart track and do a puzzle in the back seat. It just doesn't happen. I'd say moving from your bunk to the back of the cockpit, which is about 5 steps, takes about a minute. You have to plan each step with absolute coordination as to which handhold you're going to hang on to, and also the noise of the boat, how loud the hum is from the foil. Because the louder the hum, the faster you're going. So then obviously the bigger risk of nosedive following that. So there's times where you hear the hum come on and you just hold something and don't move, and then wait for the inevitable, and then carry on with your day. But yeah, cooking, going to the bathroom, changing clothes, basically doing anything at the moment.
No one wants to make the ride easier though, as right now, after 12 days of racing, there is very little separating the first 3 boats.
We're having this little game there with Malizia, who knows from front, and they're pushing a lot, so we gotta push back.
And the game is all about trying to stay in the best of the breeze. And that's why we're starting to see those leaders pick their moment to jibe even further south. There is a limit, they're not allowed to hit the ice exclusion zone, but down there, right at the bottom of the world, there is more breeze waiting for them. And if they can ride that crest of wind pushing in from the western side, they'll have plenty of speed. However, a big slowdown and a light wind bubble before Cape Town.
So I think it's the strongest wind we'll have up to the finish. And before arriving to Cape Town, it will be a light spot. Everybody will come back from behind, and it will be a new start with the leg for the leg 2. We're doing a strange sport, I think. But yes, each time we say, each time we start the leg, we say, okay, it's a long race. We're going around the world. We have to take care of the boat. Reliability will be very important. And then everybody comes on the water, full throttle, pushing hard and becoming crazy.
Plenty of twists and turns to come, and for the moment our teams are loving these conditions. 11th Hour Racing Team putting in over 540 nautical miles in their last 24-hour runs, and Team Holcim PRB weren't that far behind. But the breeze is going to run out. The challenge now is holding on tight as you're blasting along and hopefully avoiding the nosedives. Soon, the risk is going to be parking up just before the finish.